Martí, y delante de la caravana, lentamente sin jinete, un caballo para ti.
Vuelven las heridas que nos sanan de los hombres y mujeres que no te dejaremos ir. Hoy el corazón nos late afuera y tu pueblo, aunque le duela, no te quiere despedir.
Hombre, los agradecidos te acompañan, como anhelaremos tus hazañas. Ni la muerte cree que se apoderó de ti. Hombre, aprendimos a saberte eterno, así como lo vi Jesucristo. No hay un solo altar sin una luz por ti.
Hoy no quiero decirte, comandante, ni barbudo ni gigante, todo lo que sé de ti. Hoy quiero gritarte, Padre mío, no te sueltes de mi mano, aún no sé andar bien sin ti.
Hombre, los agradecidos te acompañan, como anhelaremos tus hazañas. Ni la muerte cree que se apoderó de ti. Hombre, aprendimos a saberte eterno, así como lo vi Jesucristo. No hay un solo altar sin una luz por ti. Hombre, los agradecidos te acompañan, como anhelaremos tus hazañas. Ni la muerte cree que se apoderó de ti. Hombre, aprendimos a saberte eterno, así como lo vi Jesucristo. No hay un solo altar sin una luz por ti.
Dicen que en la plaza esta mañana ya no caben más corceles llegando de otro confín. Una multitud desesperada de héroes de espaldas aladas que se han dado cita aquí. Y delante de la caravana, lentamente sin jinete, un caballo para ti.
And we're live.
Awesome.
It's all you, Sheldon.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Sheldon Tenorio. I'm the creative strategist with Pueblo Action Alliance. I'm here with the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade Committee as well. Would like to say we're coming from occupied Tiwa territory here in so-called Albuquerque, New Mexico, um, the land of the Tiwa people. Just grateful to be here with y'all. Um, Oni, Roberto, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, my name is. Oopsies. My name is Onya Sanu Chatoye. I am an organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and I'm also on the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade Organizing Committee. Nice to meet you.
Roberto left. Roberto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Roberto Royval. I've been with the Venceremos Brigade. I first went in 1978, and I've been on a whole bunch since.
Roberto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Roberto Royval.
Awesome. Cool. Thank y'all. Again, coming from Tiwa territory. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Today's programming, we're going to go over celebrating the 60th anniversary of ICAP, which is the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. And we'll be doing some slides, we'll be doing a presentation. We'll cover a little bit of the history as well of ICAP. We'll also be taking some questions as well. One of our friends actually is on here too, and we'll be answering anybody's question from the live stream and the live chat as well. Thank you to ICAP. Thank you to Lesmis as well joining us straight from Cuba. So yeah, appreciate y'all. And we can get right into it if we'd like. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Oni. Yeah, so like I said, we would like to celebrate, have y'all help us celebrate this 60 years of ICAP. What's up? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I want them to see the awesome beach there. No worries.
And if I can say one thing, if you're wondering what ICAP is, it's the Instituto Cubano en Amistad con los Pueblos. And they're the ones that do friendship with peoples around the world. And they facilitate the Venceremos Brigade in the United States to go to Cuba when we go there on the different contingents over the years.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Alberto. Yeah, you'll be hearing a little bit more as well about the programs, about people traveling to Cuba, helping out, volunteering labor, all the mutual aid, all of the dope, amazing things that we're able to experience as well through the VB with our partners, ICAP. So again, we would like to also have everyone with us celebrate 60 years of solidarity, celebrating the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. Cool. Yeah, and just a few things, super brief history about ICAP. Again, we say 60 years because it was founded in December the 30th of 1960. And again, just to speak about why ICAP was formed, how they function, what they do, currently what they do now too, as first priority was to tell people the truth about the Cuban Revolution, what was really happening in Cuba. Honestly, it really in order to counterattack lies, you know, us living here in the belly of the beast, as Oni would say, being able to just really dismantle different lies being told to us here, different lies being spread, things, for example, saying Cubans are thieves or Cubans are this or that, you know, they're kind of like the same sort of lies you would hear somebody speaking about when it comes to indigenous people here at the land, or when it comes to colonized peoples. And just wanted to be able to, ICAP really just wanted to just make sure that these lies were stopped. Understanding the realities being more that Cuba was a place of so many loving people, compassionate people who literally are also working for the same things that we are too here, you know, being able to just meet the basic human needs of the peoples, their people, the same way here for our people too. So the work really aligns. And again, they've been able to create multiple relationships with different organizations, different places across the world, across the globe, all over the world. And like, again, Roberto mentioned it earlier, through the VB, I'll also explain a little bit of our experience with ICAP through the Venceremos Brigade. Before we do that, I'd like to just kind of read verbatim this quote as well from the former director of the European Department of ICAP. And it reads, "One of the principal tasks for the new organization was to arrange work brigades where international volunteers work alongside Cubans or agricultural and building projects so that people could see for themselves the ways in which the revolution was transforming the lives of our people." And I'll invite Roberto or Oni as well to speak a little bit to this quote. What resonates with me from this quote is literally see for themselves the ways in which the revolution was transforming the lives of our people. Being able to experience partnership and friendship with ICAP through the Venceremos Brigade, for me, literally spoke to this quote, being out there thinking about even the revolution here, the 1680 Pueblo Revolt, and being of descendants of revolutionaries. This really spoke to me, and I got to experience that firsthand, and it really meant a lot. Being able to be in a place where ICAP and their partners understood what it was like to feel these oppressions, to see it every day, to live those realities, and but more so, how to come together and create unification and solidarity in a way that then perpetuates what we all believe in. Some of those things, some of those fundamental beliefs being compassion, right? Being, how do we look at each other? How do we treat one another? All the way from communities into different governmental structures. So that was something for me that really stuck out, just along with this quote, and I wanted to be able to share that too. But yeah, just a couple things that I had in mind when I read this quote. And again, really thank you to ICAP for creating those relationships, those opportunities through the Venceremos Brigade as well. If we want to go into the next slide, maybe.
If I can add to that, when we work about brigades, we would work, you know, being there a number of times, I've worked in both construction, building buildings, apartment buildings for people, and doing agricultural work, doing hose. In the early days of the brigade, in the late 60s, they were doing a lot of sugarcane cutting, because that's what they were doing, the million-ton brigades trying to cut sugarcane so that the revolution could survive. So we would work right next to other Cubans that would volunteer. They would leave their jobs, their families, and they would come and work with us. And so we were just right there next to them telling us their daily lives, how they get the kids to school, how before the revolution, how it was with, you know, the kids couldn't go to school if you didn't have any money, and now everybody could get an equal education. And so we're talking about our issues here at home. So, you know, it's just really one-on-one, and it was, you know, we've made friendships with the Cubans through all these years that we still maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto, as well. Yeah, just like Roberto was saying, my experience on the Venceremos Brigade literally was to go and also help and work and just learn and exchange both through cultures and education. It was really huge way. And then upon coming back to, like, being able to be right here in this space and continue the solidarity, continue that work, it really means a lot. And honestly, a lot of my experience really only comes from the experience of meeting folks from ICAP and through the Venceremos Brigade. Again, just a super huge, amazing opportunity to be able to go and learn and grow with the Cubans, and being able to more so to reflect when I came home too, being Pueblo, being Pueblo, just thinking about the importance of international solidarity from our perspectives, what we could learn and what we could also offer as well. And some of those brigades are listed here as well, and all of the other places too that ECAP has been able to form relationship with all over the world. Again, we don't say that lightly. When ECAP has created those relationships all over the world, we really mean that those relationships are established and people are learning. They've sent so many brigades, sent so much aid to different countries that you'll also be hearing from Oni as well, Onisanu as well, here in a little while too. But yeah, just wanted to speak a little bit about our experiences and just the different opportunities and amazing things that ECAP has been doing. Again, we're here to celebrate 60 years, so it's awesome just to hear about all of the programs that they have and all of the ways in which people can also support and also learn about too.
And the only thing I'd add is just like ECAP's whole mission, like the reason why it came to be, like Sheldon said, is to tell the truth about the Cuban Revolution. Particularly for those of us living in the United States or in the Western world, all we hear is like constant lies about Cuba. And that's the one thing that struck me the most about actually going there and seeing it for myself with the Venceremos Brigade, which was organized in partnership with ECAP, was just like how, like I felt like I've heard about Cuba my whole life. And then I went there and like everything I knew, everything I'd heard was like not true. Like I always put it as like it was like bald-faced lies. Like people always told me that Cuba was a dictatorship. People always told me that Cuban people were oppressed. People always told me that like Cuban people had to like wait in line for like basic necessities. All these kind of things. And then I went and saw, and I was like, these people built the world they wanted to live in. They fought a revolution together, and then they won that revolution, and then they continued building that revolution. They built a new society. They built a socialist state. They did that with their own hands. Like the whole image of Cuba in the United States is like Fidel Castro in charge of everybody. But when you go there, you see it's like the people themselves that are building it and that are running it. And that's like really the value of ECAP, because that's like their whole mission. Like people are not going to understand what Cuba is unless they see it for themselves. And ECAP really facilitates those connections and that travel to expose people to the truth of Cuba. So many lies are told about Cuba so consistently in the United States. Like the majority of what you hear about Cuba on a day-to-day basis in the United States is a lie. And so ECAP's mission is so important to spread the truth, and it's like such a huge responsibility for those of us who have been there, who have gotten to work with ECAP to spread the truth when we come back to the United States.
Heck yeah, I'm so hyped. I'm like, I'm gonna be hell yeah. But really, yeah, thank you, Onisanu. It's literally right there, like, and to be able to experience it too, it really speaks a lot of truth. It really speaks to that vision and that mission of ECAP, and then even further, just the Cuban people, the communities, it's themselves as well, being able to be there and learn, and again learn and grow together and create that solidarity, like Oni was saying too. We have a huge responsibility for those of us who have had that opportunity to go and travel and see it firsthand, being here and understanding exactly how the belly of the beast works here, and knowing and seeing it firsthand, living those realities, and then being able to counter those lies and counter all of the different media. We say media here, but in Cuba, it's foreign media, because we're over here, we're on Turtle Island. And so from there, it's like it's foreign media because it's other media outlets, other places, other countries spreading lies about them. Just think about it too. If this was us, folks here who know what we're doing, like living in a way that's respectful and we treat each other respectful, and then somebody in another country spreading lies about us, think about how we would feel or how you would feel. But yeah. Cool. Yeah. And would like to hand it over to Onisanu to speak a little bit more about the other conferences as well in solidarity from ICAP.
For sure. I have to unmute in two places. So yeah, like Sheldon explained, ICAP's primary mission is to share the truth about Cuba and the Cuban Revolution with the world to counter attacks by imperialism. So it does that through building and working with the solidarity delegations that travel to Cuba from around the world to see the truth of the Cuban Revolution. We saw like delegations from Puerto Rico, from the United States, from Europe, from Australia, from New Zealand. So that's part of ICAP's work. But another really important part of ICAP's work is organizing conferences where people from all over the world who are engaged in either the struggle against imperialism or who are organizing in solidarity with Cuba can come together in space and figure out how to move forward in order to address the blockade, in order to address the lies that are spread about Cuba, in order to address the way that imperialism attacks the planet, the way that the US empire specifically is attacking the planet. So a couple of examples of these conferences that ICAP has helped organize is one that actually happened last year, the Anti-Imperialist Meeting for Solidarity and Democracy and Against Neoliberalism, which happened in Havana from November 1st to the 3rd of 2019, so last fall. And that conference was actually really amazing because it was delegates from all over the anti-imperialist world. So there were delegates from the All-African People's Revolutionary Party there, both in the United States and from Africa. There were delegates from Europe. There were delegates obviously throughout Central and South America and from the Caribbean. And they all came together in this space to talk about what imperialism looked like in their specific context, to talk about how the US empire is attacking Cuba and why, and also to develop strategies for how to address these attacks on the Cuban Revolution and on anti-imperialist states around the world. So, and of course, because we know, like, it's not just Cuba that's getting it, it's any state that stands up for itself, any state that fights for self-determination, any state that resists imperialism is going to get attacked in a similar way. And so Cuba understands that many people, many nations are going through the same thing, and solidarity is the weapon to destroy those attacks. And so some of the resolutions of that conference in Havana, I just want to briefly read to give y'all an idea of like what kind of amazing conversations and organizing ICAP is facilitating. So some of the resolutions of that November 3rd conference against imperialism are a demand to lift the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed on Cuba by the government of the United States. They condemned the implementation of the Helms-Burton Act. The Helms-Burton Act is, of course, the law the US government passed, which allowed nations that had their industries nationalized by the Cuban Revolution to sue the government of Cuba for damages. Like, these were corporations that were exploiting Cuba before the revolution, that were exploiting Cuban people. The Cuban people took back their resources, took back their labor, and then the US government said these corporations could sue them for that. So that's what the Helms-Burton Act does, and the World Conference Against Imperialism hosted in Havana condemned the Helms-Burton Act, condemned its implementation, and called the United States a violator of the principles and basic norms of international law, which persist in its aim to destroy the Cuban Revolution. Another resolution is to support and back the need to end economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States of America against Cuba, which was presented at the United Nations General Assembly right after the conference on the 6th and 7th of November 2019. Also, the conference demanded the return to the Cuban people of the territory illegally occupied by the Guantanamo naval base. You might not know this, but the US government straight up stole land from Cuba to open up Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is, of course, one of the most famous concentration camps in the world. It is a place where people are kidnapped, brought to, and tortured and held against their will indefinitely. That exists on Cuban land illegally. The US government is illegally occupying Cuban land. The US government is into that kind of thing, stealing people's land. So one of the resolutions of that conference was to return the land illegally occupied by the Guantanamo naval base back to the Cuban people. It has been usurped for over 100 years by the US government and is an obvious violation of Cuban sovereignty. So those are just like a few of the demands that came out of that conference. And it's one of dozens of conferences around the same vein that have been organized by ICAP in partnership with anti-imperialist organizations all around the world. Cuba is in the forefront of the struggle against US imperialism because Cuba is one of the primary victims of this empire thanks to the economic blockade and thanks to constant attacks by the US government on the Cuban Revolution. Other examples of amazing conferences that have been organized by ICAP or in partnership with ICAP are the Africa-Cuba Solidarity Conference, which actually happened in Ethiopia in 2012. It was a gathering of Cuba solidarity organizations from all over the African continent who came together in Ethiopia to again talk about how imperialism is attacking Cuba and Africa, and to develop collective strategies for addressing those attacks. Cuba and Africa have a long history of solidarity. Cuba showed up for Africa when no one else would. For every anti-colonial struggle that went down on the continent, particularly armed struggles, Cuba was on the front line beside us, taking our lead and helping us push back colonizers and imperialists. So Cuba and Africa have a very long friendship, which actually we have a video that we'll explain to you a little bit later. And then also an international colloquium for the Miami Five and Holguin. The Miami Five were Cuban operatives who went to the United States to attempt to stop US-sponsored terrorist attacks in Cuba. If you are not familiar with this history, you should know that the US government has straight up sponsored terrorist attacks against civilian targets in Cuba. The United States government has sponsored terrorist attacks that have been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people in Cuba. Civilians, not military targets, regular people in hotels, cafeterias, downtown areas. This is what the U.S. government has done, like the lengths that the U.S. has gone to attack the Cuban Revolution. And so this kept happening. People were dying. People were suffering. Cuba was like, this has got to stop. They're not even admitting to what they're doing. And so they sent these 5 incredibly brave people into the United States to attempt to identify the people that were funding these attacks, identify the forces that were organizing these attacks, and stop them to save lives. The United States government caught wind of their presence, captured them, and then a campaign to liberate those political prisoners was launched. They became known as the Cuban Five. They are at this point all free, but that was the result of organizing from around the world led by Cuba to free those heroes. And a really good movie that's on Netflix, of all places. I was really shocked to see it on Netflix, because usually when Cuba is discussed on Netflix, or anything about anti-imperialist countries is discussed on Netflix, it's like just lies. But this movie is actually accurate. It's called The WASP Network, and it's about the story of the Cuban Five. It shows an example of the terrorist attacks in Havana, and it shows you like the humanity behind these heroes. So I definitely recommend it. Check it out if you have Netflix, The WASP Network. So those are some examples of ICAP and Cuba solidarity conferences. Other things to know about ICAP is, in addition to organizing brigades, in addition to working with solidarity delegations, in addition to organizing these conferences, ICAP representatives actually travel all around the world to tell people the truth about the Cuban Revolution. So just discussed on this slide, ICAP's former president, her name is Kania Serrano, traveled to Damascus, Syria for an Arab-Cuban solidarity forum attended by 12 Middle Eastern countries. So ICAP has built connections with the United States, with the Caribbean, with Central America, with South America, with Northern Europe, with Western Europe, with Australia, New Zealand, and with the Middle East, with the Arab world. ICAP has been intentional about building strong, principled ties with people's struggles all over this planet. Here in the United States, so-called leftists will cut off access to entire parts of the world. Say, we don't want to work with you because we've internalized Islamophobia or Orientalism. ICAP is like, no, the more solidarity we build, the more people around the world who know the truth about Cuba, the more people who consider themselves friends of the Cuban Revolution, the better chance we have of defeating imperialism. ICAP's entire model of organizing is about building solidarity between struggles around the world. They are not sectarian, they are not narrow nationalists, they are focused on building internationalist, anti-imperialist connections. And this conference held in Damascus is just one example. We already talked about the conference held in Ethiopia. These have happened dozens of times thanks to ICAP's work. This is another quote that I'll read to y'all. This is again from Olmedo Perez Rubio, who is the director of the European Department of ICAP. He says, "We need more than ever to continue defending the principles on which our revolution has been built in the face of mounting U.S. threats and the blockade which costs lives and millions of dollars a year. As the U.S. government is now pressuring companies and banks from third-party countries to discontinue trading with the island, even with Cubans living abroad, the work done by solidarity groups is more important than ever. First, it is essential that we continue the struggle for the freedom of our 5 heroes, that's the aforementioned Cuban Five, who are again all free now. And next comes the continuing condemnation of the U.S. blockade, which inflicts so much damage and suffering on our society. Finally, we have the task of counteracting the inaccurate and often openly hostile reporting about Cuba by the mainstream foreign media, what we Cubans call the media war against our country, la guerra mediática. Yeah. We supply information to the Solidarity organization so that they can confront the media and inform the public about the way Cuba really is in their own countries. So again, ICAP's entire mission is building solidarity between nations and using those relationships to spread the truth about Cuba. We know if we turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, read the New York Times, it's gonna be point blank lies. Bald-faced lies distributed by the US ruling class that wants to get its hands on Cuba again. So we have a responsibility as people who consider ourselves in solidarity with the Cuban Revolution to take up ICAP's mission and spread the truth about Cuba. We have all been to Cuba on this call. Myself, Sheldon, and Roberto, we've been part of the VB. We saw Cuba for ourselves. We came back here and we have spent almost every waking moment telling the truth about Cuba since we've been back for like a year. And that is the work. That is why ICAP exists, because ICAP knows that if people are able to see Cuba for themselves, they're going to know that everything they've been taught by the bourgeois, by capitalism about Cuba is a lie. The biggest weapon that the Cuban Revolution has is the truth. And ICAP is about building the strength of that weapon, spreading that truth around the world through principled international solidarity. So just to conclude with some bullet points before we take y'all to the videos, we want to express our unconditional solidarity with ICAP and with the Cuban Revolution. ICAP put in work to host us when we were in Cuba. The 50th anniversary of the Venceremos Brigade was over 150 people with all kinds of needs, coming from the belly of the beast with all kinds of preconceptions, and ICAP was there sacrificing and teaching us and building with us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks for some people. ICAP put in work and sacrificed and organized in order for us to see the truth about the Cuban Revolution, in order for us to learn from the Cuban Revolution, and we are eternally grateful for ICAP's work. We want to say that the Cuban Five, the heroes, the political prisoners, are free thanks to the organizing of the Cubans and the folks acting in solidarity with the Cuban Revolution, so shout out to that. But the U.S. economic blockade on Cuba continues to this day. The Trump administration on the way out the door made it even tighter, made it even worse, cost Cuba billions of dollars and a hit to its economy. So the blockade still exists, which means our work in solidarity with Cuba is not done. We must, as people in the belly of the beast, fight for the U.S. government to end that illegal economic blockade. Until that blockade falls, we have not lived up to Cuba's example. We have not lived up to Cuba's solidarity.
And if I can add something,
yeah, one sec. Let me finish
to show you what the
bullet points, and then I'll pass it to you, Roberto.
Okay.
Cool. So after 60 years, ICAP, which is the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, has links with 2,121 solidarity organizations in 151 countries. Some of those countries do not even recognize Cuba, and Cuba does not even have a diplomatic mission in those countries. But ICAP still built relationships with the people of those countries, because that is how deep ICAP's work is. Cuba has been described as the voice of those who have no voice. And those of us in the African liberation struggle know exactly what that means, because like I said earlier, when Africa called, Cuba was one of the only nations that answered. Cuba is a lifelong friend to the African Revolution. When almost everybody else on the planet was trying to exploit us, Cuba showed up to fight beside us. So Cuba is the voice of those who have no voice, and those of us in the belly of the beast have a responsibility to be Cuba's voice here. We have to tell the truth about the Cuban Revolution. And I'll pass it to you, Roberto.
And just to show you how crazy this blockade goes against Cuba, tonight's event, the celebrating ICAP's 60th anniversary, we wanted to invite a few of our Cubano friends from ICAP to join a panel with us tonight here so you could talk to them directly. But they were unable to because of the law, US laws with Facebook and Zoom and everything. We couldn't bring them to you tonight. So we really apologize. I know that they can still, that they're still there. And over the years, we've said, we've had a tight relationship with ICAP. Here in New Mexico, we've had the privilege and honor to host a few of the Cubanos from ICAP to come to New Mexico and see for themselves, come and talk about the Cuban Revolution to our communities. We've had large events here in Albuquerque and in Santa Fe where we bring the Cubans and talk to people here and go on the streets and talk to people. One of the last people I can remember bringing was Fernando Garcia Biel from ICAP, and just fostering these relationships. And it's always been an honor for us to bring Cubanos here. And let's see when we can do that again. We'll put that in our agenda. Thank you.
I'm down for that, Roberto. Let's bring the Cuban comrades here. Let's spread the truth about Cuba far and wide within the belly of the beast. It's our responsibility.
Hey, Lesmes, can you come?
Lesmes is all up in these comments, saying very awesome things. Lesmes says, ICAP's mission is to show Cuba the reality, or show the world the Cuban reality, and solidarity is the principled way of doing it. Cuba not only receives solidarity, but also gives it. We defend fair struggles of other people. Erica is saying that the documentary Crack on Netflix is pretty accurate. I agree. I watched it. I was shocked. They talked about the Contras. They talked about the Reagan administration funneling crack. I was like, damn. So yes, watch that. And also watch the WAF network. Lesmes agreeing that the Cuban Revolution's biggest weapon is the truth. Greeting from Toronto, Canada, from our comrade Elizabeth. Mac from Hood Communists, echoing that we have a responsibility as anti-imperialist organizers in the belly of the beast to tell the truth about Cuba. So thank y'all so much for your comments and for your interaction and for joining us for this presentation. We have 2 videos that we want to screen for y'all, made by our comrades at ICAP and sent to us. The first video was made specifically for the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade. Like Roberto mentioned, thanks to the U.S. blockade on Cuba, ICAP comrades in Cuba cannot use Zoom. They are blockaded from Zoom. And so rather than joining us live, our comrades at ICAP pre-recorded a video where they discuss their history and their mission, and we're going to play that for y'all. And then the second video is another message recorded by ICAP, but this time it was recorded for African Liberation Day, which my organization, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, hosted this past May. We had our very first virtual African Liberation Day because of COVID. And ICAP sent a video message talking about the history of Cuban solidarity with the African Revolution. So we're going to play both of those videos for you right now. And then we're going to come back and take any questions or comments that you have. Thank you so much.
Hola. Hello, how are you? My name is Jamil Martinez.
Hi, my name is Aileen. We are officials of North American Division from ICAP, and we would like to thank you for the invitation to this event.
Thank you very much.
Well, Cuban Institute for Friendship with the People, ICAP due to its acronym in Spanish, was created in December 30 of 1960, following an idea of our Commander-in-Chief, Fidel Castro Ruz. Our president is Fernando González Pior, one of the 5 Cuban heroes. But when creating ICAP, well, after almost 2 years of the revolutionary triumph, it was a complex moment for our country because many changes were going on in political issues, in social issues, and people from the rest of the world wanted to know what was really happening in Cuba. That's why Cuban government created ICAP, to show Cuban reality to the rest of the world, to establish solidarity relationship with the peoples, and to support the first struggles of people all over the world. ICAP has delegations in all provinces except in Havana, because we have here the central institution. We are organized into divisions: North America, Africa and Middle East, Asia and Oceania, Europe and Latin America. We have an agency travel, AMISTOUR, which allows increasing our friends' visits. And we also have Julio Antonio Mella International Camp, better known as CIHAM, which is the place that received the international volunteer work brigades that arrived to Cuba from many countries. ICAP have relationship with a wide range of people, always when they respect the principles of the Cuban Revolution. That's why the World Solidarity Movement with Cuba is huge and inclusive, including 1,620 friendship organizations from 155 countries. In North American Division, our work concerns 2 countries, United States and Canada. In US, we have 123 solidarity organizations and 52 of them are members of National Network on Cuba, NNOC. Our main projects are Venceremos Brigade, the first brigade created in solidarity with Cuba. By the way, in 2019, we celebrated its 50th anniversary with a wonderful program. And the other is Pastor for Peace, that has been for many years a symbol of solidarity between peoples from US and Cuba. It is also important to highlight ICAP's link with foreign students, mainly those who are in Latin American School of Medicine, ELAM, which was created in order to train doctors here in Cuba, also following Fidel's idea. So far, around 172 students from US have graduated from ELAM, and around 80 are currently studying there. It is simply an exceptional project.
Yes, and as part of the work that ICAP develops, we have been engaged with the most important issues dealing with the Cuban Revolution. As our main objective is to present our reality, ICAP has been involved in these 60 years of existence in the struggle for the release of the Cuban 5 heroes. Probably you remember that. Also, in the case of Elian Gonzalez, that kid that was kidnapped in the United States. Of course, the lifting of the blockade that successive U.S. administration has imposed to Cuba for over 60 years now, and the return of the illegally occupied base in Guantanamo. So those has been some of the most important issues ICAP has been working with, explaining our friends worldwide. It is important also to mention that ICAP right now is involved the 17th of each month. We are carrying out virtual activities, events, in which we dedicate those events to certain topics in which has suffered the impact, the direct impact of the blockade. Okay, a policy that we, as many friends in United States and in many parts of the world, are considering now is the time. Now is the best time to lift that policy that have affected our country for so many years. We hope that in the current situation in the United States, with the recently elected president, the things between the exchanges between Cuba and the United States would be in better conditions. This would be, Biden would be the 13th president of the United States that will have the opportunity of lifting the blockade. But at least we are hoping to live in a so civilized way. With the Obama administration, it was proven that despite our deepest and profound differences, we can and we must, for the benefit of our 2 countries, we must live in a better situation. And of course, Cuba is hoping for this new administration to help us in that regard. We would like to also once again to thank you for the opportunity of sharing these ideas with you. As Aileen was mentioning, the Venceremos Brigade is a symbol in Cuba. Many people in Cuba know about the Venceremos Brigade, have shared many moments with the Venceremos Brigade, even since the times of Fidel, that he himself was sharing that experience with young people from the United States. Same as with the project of the IFCO Pastor for Peace, the caravan that come every year to Cuba. And we want to give thanks because we know we're counting on your support to continue this struggle. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hola, hola. Hello, how are you? My name is Jamil Martinez.
Hi, my name is Aileen. We are officials of North American Division from ICAP, and we would like to thank you for the invitation to this event.
Thank you very much.
Well, Cuban Institute for Friendship with the People, ICAP due to its acronym in Spanish, was created in December 30 of 1960, following an idea of our Commander-in-Chief, Fidel Castro Ruz. Our president is Fernando González Jorge, one of the 5.
Good afternoon, dear friends, brothers and sisters. It is a pleasure for me to join you in this forum convened by our comrades from the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. It has a profound political significance, sharing this experience on occasion of commemorating the 57th anniversary of the creation of the African Union, once the Organization of African Unity. On behalf of the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples, we wish to convey our sincere congratulations for such a memorable event. Fidel Castro remarked several times, and I quote, "The blood of Africa flows abundantly through our veins," end of quote. And in a speech in 1975, he stated, "And from Africa, many of our ancestors came to this land as slaves. Many of these slaves had to fight, and many of them fought on the Mambi Liberating Army for the freedom of our homeland." The eternal commander-in-chief of this Caribbean nation taught Cubans to pay a moral debt to our ancestors, which began to materialize with the support we gave to the struggle for independence of many countries of this sister region, and last until today with our collaboration in various spheres, mainly in health. One cannot write about the unprecedented brotherhood between the largest of the Caribbean islands and Africa, neither without remembering the heroic guerrilla fighter Ernesto Che Guevara and his restless struggle in those lands, nor the many African fighters who strove for the true independence of their nations. It is essential to also quote a well-known expression of Nelson Mandela on his visit to Cuba, and I quote, "Cuba is the only country in the world that did not go to Africa to plunder the continent or steal its wealth. They went there only to fight for it and leave on the African soil the blood of his sons." End of quote. Dear comrades, the current situation in the world requires more unity, collaboration, and solidarity among peoples. The new SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus attacks everyone equally, regardless of the color of skin, social origin, or religious beliefs. Today, we mourn the death of thousands of people who have lost their lives due to the virus. It is still not possible to accurately predict the dimensions of its impact. The challenge for our country has been immense. Several months prior to the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, we were already facing an appalling escalation of the United States economic, commercial, and financial policy of the blockade, aimed at restraining our trade and stifling our access to fuel and foreign currencies. Despite the countless restrictions imposed by these hostile, illegal, and inhumane policies, more than 1,000 Cuban health collaborators are in the red zones of care for COVID-19 patients in 23 countries, and the rest work in observation and recovery rooms, wards, and consultations. These professionals comprise the 25 brigades of the Henry Reeve International Medical Contingent that join the already existing missions in 60 countries of the world. Cuba will not resign its vocation for solidarity, although the US government, for political reasons, routinely continue to attack and hinder the international cooperation that our country offers. The terrorist actions carried out against our diplomatic mission in Washington is a direct result of the policy of aggressive discourse of the United States government against Cuba, of the state speech and the permanent incitement to violence by US politicians and the anti-Cuban extremist group that have made up of this type of attacks their way of living. They bring back an old lie used in 1982 by the State Department, and is the inclusion of Cuba in the list of countries that do not collaborate in the fight against terrorism, an old strategy to justify the aggressive policy against the Cuban Revolution. It is precisely the US government, the one that uses state terrorism as a weapon against countries that oppose their domination, likewise promote without any modesty the Monroe Doctrine. The intention continues to be pushing for political concessions from Cuba by the means of economic asphyxiation and continued socio-economic hardship of our population. Dear brothers and sisters, comrades all, once again, I want to thank the African people, our friends, and the solidarity organizations for their permanent support of Cuba. Africa is a proven stronghold of solidarity with Cuba in the world. Its sympathy and support has always accompanied generations of Cubans since the early days of the triumph of the Cuban Revolution on January 1st, 1959, to the heroic battles against the genocidal blockade and the crusades against the media war of the transnational corporations of disinformation. May this meeting serve as the opportunity to thank once again your participation in the 6th African Continental Meeting held in Nigeria and the Anti-Imperialism Meeting of Solidarity for Democracy and Against Neoliberalism that took place in Havana. Both events, coherently held in 2019, urge us to strengthen unity and solidarity amongst our peoples, to carry out collective and coordinated actions with regional impact, to nurture the solidarity groups with new actors, especially young individuals, to incorporate young Cuban trained graduates into our activities, to strengthen the basis of the Solidarity with Cuba movement through greater articulation with social and popular movements and left-leaning forces. Being consistent with our history, with our humanist and internationalist vocation, we reiterate our firm solidarity with the Bolivarian and Chavista revolution, the civic military union of the people, and its legitimate president, Nicolás Maduro, who through dialogue and with sectors of the opposition defends peace in Venezuela and the sovereignty of his country against all kinds of aggressions from the US government and its allies. We reaffirm our unwavering support for the Sahrawi people while we stand up for the search of a definitive and just solution to the situation in the Western Sahara, allowing them to exercise their right to self-determination and to live in peace on the territory. Likewise, we express our solidarity with the brothers and sisters in Zimbabwe, Iran, and Syria, we reiterate our unrestricted support for a comprehensive, just, lasting solution to the Palestinian cause on the basic basis of the creation of two states, which allows the Palestinians the right to self-determination and to have an independent and sovereign state based on the recognized pre-1967 borders and with East Jerusalem and its capital. We denounce the imperialist interference in the internal affairs of the African and Middle East countries, the aggressions and wars unleashed under the so-called crusade against terrorism aimed at controlling the natural resources of those regions. The delivery of the True Black Star Laborer Award to the Latin American School of Medicine and the Henry Reeve International Contingent of Doctors specializing in disaster situations and serious epidemics symbolizes your recognition to the humanist and internationalist work of the Cuban Revolution. I acknowledge that Cuba's relation with Africa is literally indestructible, and that truthful and loyal to our history, we will continue to strengthen the bonds of cooperation and solidarity for the benefit of our peoples. La lucha continúa. The battle continues. Ever onward to victory. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, y'all. Here's the chat visible. So once again, those were 2 videos sent to us by the comrades at ICAP talking about their mission, talking about their history of solidarity with people's struggles around the world. The first video was made specifically for the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade for this event. Our comrades at ICAP couldn't join us on Zoom because of the blockade, and so they made that video for us because we wanted to talk to y'all about them, and they were like, we're gonna help you, and I still feel very emotional about that. We very much appreciate y'all. And then the second video, once again, was from the All African People's Revolutionary Party's commemoration of African Liberation Day, which happened in May of last year. It was our very first virtual ALD, and so our comrades that we work with around the world were able to send in video messages of solidarity. The second speaker is the head of ICAP. His name is Fernando Gomez Lort, and he's actually one of the Cuban 5. He is one of the 5 Cuban heroes that traveled to the US to stop terrorist attacks on the Cuban government. He was illegally imprisoned by the US government, and it was the campaign led by Cuba that liberated him. And then he went on to become head of ICAP. So incredible pedigree in that comrade, incredible pedigree in ICAP in general. As he said in that statement, Cuba and Africa have had a very, very, very long and beautiful history of solidarity with each other. Africa shows up for Cuba because Cuba shows up for us. So thank you so much for joining us for these videos. I'm not sure if Sheldon is around, but we have some people in the comments who want to interact with us. So I'll pass it back to you.
Ooh, awesome. Yep. Thank you, Sonu. Definitely, again, sharing a lot of the happiness, emotions from the video that ICAP sent over to us to be played and shared with y'all, everybody tuning in. Some of the comments here, and feel free to ask Lesmes, who is also an official from ICAP too, who is on watching the chats as well happen. Is there anything about presentations, about the slides, anything you saw and heard you want to get more information about? Ask us, ask Lesmes as well. If there's anything more you want to learn or ask about ICAP too, go right into the chat. And Lesmes is there to also take those questions too and answer you directly.
Dude, I was just talking. Thank you, Celinda. Dang. I have to unmute in 2 places. So I was saying that our comrade Island from ICAP said in the comments of the Facebook Live, Cuba is on the list of countries that sponsor terrorism, and that is not fair. We have been suffering terrorism from the U.S. government since the beginning of the revolution. And so that's Island, again, from ICAP, pointing out that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who served in the Trump administration, recently declared on the way out the door that Cuba was a state sponsor of terrorism. This is, of course, ridiculous. Cuba does not sponsor terrorism. Cuba serves up for liberation struggles all around the world. In Africa, in Palestine, in Bolivia, Venezuela. Cuba shows up for people fighting for justice. Cuba does not sponsor terrorism. But you know who does sponsor terrorism? The U.S. government. Like already discussed, the U.S. paid terrorists to bomb civilian targets in Havana in order to attack the Cuban Revolution. They killed hundreds of civilians in attacks just like this during the revolution and after it. The U.S. sponsors terrorism all over the world. The U.S. certainly has sponsored terrorism in Cuba, and so the idea that the U.S. is in any position to dare to declare Cuba a sponsor of terrorism is absolutely ridiculous. But the U.S. government and the U.S. media, of course, depend on people not knowing the real truth, and so they can say wild shit like Cuba's a state sponsor of terrorism.
Also, if I can add one thing, our comrade in Cuba, Lesmes, was asking whether, with elected President Joe Biden, he has the opportunity of lifting the blockade, but is he willing to do it? Lesmes from Cuba is saying we deserve normalization of relationship between our governments and our peoples. And we really hope that Biden will do something about that, end the criminal blockade.
Biden has the power to take action to end this blockade. Biden has the power to take action to stop the implementation of the Helms-Burton Act. The Helms-Burton Act is, of course, the U.S. law that allows corporations that exploited Cuba before the revolution to sue the Cuban people for damages. It is absolutely ridiculous. It is one of many attacks on the Cuban Revolution that Joe Biden has the power to stop. And so there is a hope that Joe Biden will use his position and use that opportunity to lift the blockade and to improve the relationship between the U.S. and Cuban governments. And we, as people in the belly of the beast, need to put pressure on him to do the right thing. Put pressure on Joe Biden to lift the blockade. Put pressure on Joe Biden to stop the implementation of the Helms-Burton Act. Put pressure on Joe Biden to close Guantanamo Bay, to give that land back to Cuba. He has the power to do it. We have a responsibility to pressure him to do that.
And then just to read another comment from one of our viewers tonight, from somebody here in Burke, Beba, she's saying, Cuba, que linda es Cuba, quien la defiende la quiere más, que viva Cuba libre y socialista. Thank you, Beba.
And then another comrade, Craig Simpson, is saying, it's good to see you, Roberto. Yay. And then Eileen is saying, bravo, Roberto. Now is the time to unblock Cuba. Comrade Erica from Hood Communists is saying, long live the Cuban Revolution. We have a question from Darren Mack, who's asking, could you describe what your political education program consists of? I'm not sure if that question is directed to ICAP or to us, but I suppose we can answer. So we are the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade Organizing Committee. We are just one state-based segment of the larger National Venceremos Brigade. We actually host these political education events on the last Wednesday of every single month. We've been doing this basically since the beginning of the pandemic. Initially, our plan was to have in-person events and raise funds for the 51st Brigade, but that was canceled because of COVID. And so we pivoted to doing political education in this format to share with as many people as possible the truth about the Cuban Revolution. So we've talked about Cuba's actual green economy, its actual sustainable development practices, and how it's responding to climate change. We talked about Cuba's response to COVID, both within its borders and around the world, how Cuba has sent doctors to dozens of countries to fight the pandemic, how Cuba has sent medicine to countries that would otherwise not be able to get access to it to fight this pandemic, how Cuba is basically showing up and showing out in order to save lives while the U.S. is just dropping the ball in every conceivable way. We've also talked about the history of the Cuban Revolution, and now this event this month is talking about ICAP. So this is the primary form of political education that the New Mexico Venceremos Brigade engages in. We just have these webinars where we talk to y'all, where we tell you the truth about the Cuban Revolution. And then I'm not sure if ICAP has any additional thoughts about how they do political education. Let's see. Siempre con Cuba, which is the ICAP Facebook page, says, thank you so much for the love and solidarity with Cuba. 60 years of ICAP. Viva Cuba. Lots of people tell me I'm muted. I apologize. What else? Cool. Thank you so much, Shalinda, for joining us. So I don't see any more questions, y'all, and we're at 7:06. We had actually planned an hour for this event, so how do we feel about wrapping it up? Sounds good. Cool. So once again, we are the New Mexico Committee of the Venceremos Brigade. We have all been to Cuba as part of the Venceremos Brigade. The Venceremos Brigade is a solidarity delegation to Cuba, the oldest one in the United States. It was started 51 years ago by youth in the Snakes who wanted to see the truth about Cuban Revolution and show up in solidarity. And the Venceremos Brigade has traveled to Cuba every single year since. You can learn more about the Venceremos Brigade at the official website, which is vbforcuba.com. And if you want to help us get more African, indigenous, Chicano, and colonized comrades to Cuba to learn from the Cuban Revolution, then please check out the donate link on that site and make a one-time or recurring monthly donation. Your donations will go directly to helping get poor and oppressed and colonized people to Cuba on the brigade. I'm actually going to put the direct donation link in the comments right now. As mentioned, we do these events on the last Wednesday of every single month. So the next one will be on the 24th of February at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to be doing a whole seminar on Fidel Castro. I guarantee you, if you live in the United States, you have heard nothing but lies about Fidel Castro. I can pretty much promise you that everything you know about Fidel Castro is a lie, a straight up lie. He was not a dictator. He is beloved by his people. He is a high example of the possibility of the Cuban Revolution. And we're going to tell y'all the truth about who he was and what he's done for the world. February 24th, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Please visit vbforcuba.com once again to learn about the Venceremos Brigade. Donate to the VB if you have some extra change and you want to help get African, Indigenous, and Chicano people to Cuba. And thank y'all so much for joining us, and we will see you next month.
Thank you all. Thanks for joining.